Well, the Biden administration, as you may know, the Richmond field office targeted Latin Mass Catholics as a hate group, and their evidence for that was the Southern Poverty Law Center's suggestion that those Catholics were hate groups. I mean, this is your wheelhouse here, right? Religious liberty, government, your testimony, government targeting of nonprofits. Have you or your organization condemned the SPLC and the Biden administration for targeting Latin Mass Catholics?
This may look like another argument about labels and political rhetoric, but it's actually about something far more serious. What's really being tested here is whether private ideological watchdogs can quietly become unofficial government referees, deciding who is acceptable and who becomes a national threat. This raises broader questions about power, neutrality, and whether the line between activism and federal authority has collapsed. When the government begins using advocacy tools as enforcement guidance, it stops being about disagreement and starts becoming about control. In this video, we'll break down how this exchange exposes the deeper struggle over institutional trust, religious freedom, and whether political convenience is eroding constitutional restraint.
For 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For more than 2 decades, the Southern Poverty Law Center has operated its so-called hate map, a project it claims is meant to track extremist organizations, but which increasingly functions as a political weapon. Since its launch in 2000, the number of groups labeled as hate groups has ballooned from 599 to 1,371. This dramatic increase does not reflect a sudden increase in extremism, but rather SPLC's steady expansion of what it defines as hate, a definition that increasingly targets traditional Christian beliefs and conservative viewpoints. Ms. Tyler, in your opinion, is Alliance Defending Freedom a hate group?
I don't work for SPLC. I wasn't part of
I understand that, but you came here today, the title, you know what the title of the hearing is, and you said some complimentary things about SPLC in your written testimony. In your opinion, is ADF a hate group?
I wouldn't use that term.
Yeah, I wouldn't either for an organization that argued 16 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. How about Turning Point USA? Is Turning Point USA, in your opinion, a hate group?
Again, I don't speak for SPLC, and
I'm asking
I'm
for
here
yourself
for
and
my
your organization. Do you believe Turning Point USA is a hate group, Ms. Tyler?
Yeah, my organization doesn't label groups. And
What we see here is the foundation of the entire debate. When does classification stop being a public safety tool and start becoming political shaping? Expanding definitions means expanding power. And when the organizations being named are faith groups, policy advocates, and legal foundations, the question becomes whether ideological disagreement is being dressed up as security risk. That's not just a political concern. That challenges the credibility of every institution that relies on these lists.
I don't.
How about Family Research Council? Is Family Research Council a hate group, Ms. Tyler?
Same answer.
Okay, is Focus on the Family
Same answer.
a hate group? How about Prager University?
I don't have any of these labels for any of these organizations.
Okay, but you talk a lot in here about what constitutes a hate group, and a white supremacist organization. Is Center for Immigration Studies a white supremacist organization?
I'm not familiar with that organization.
No. And how about Catholics who go to Latin Mass? Are they a hate organization? Are they haters by definition?
No, I don't.
I
know
wouldn't
what
think so.
that is.
Yeah, in your written testimony, you said BJC has a consistent record of supporting both the First Amendment's religion.
This hesitation is revealing. If even witnesses favorable to SPLC refuse to stand behind the classification publicly, it underscores a trust problem. When organizations are labeled without criteria that can be confidently defended, it weakens public confidence and invites claims of political targeting. And once trust erodes in labeling institutions, everything downstream, law enforcement, public policy, and civic unity, erodes with it.
Clauses, no establishment and free exercise. A little bit later, you said our commitment to religious freedom stems from the historical experience of early Baptists. And you said further that government targeting of nonprofits should be of concern to all Americans. Has your organization or you personally condemned the Biden administration's targeting of Catholics who attend Latin Mass as hate groups?
I don't understand the question.
Well, the Biden administration, as you may know, the Richmond field office targeted Latin Mass Catholics as a hate group, and their evidence for that was the Southern Poverty Law Center's suggestion that those Catholics were hate groups. I mean, this is your wheelhouse here, right? Religious liberty, government, your testimony, government targeting of nonprofits. Have you or your organization condemned the SPLC and the Biden administration for targeting Latin Mass Catholics?
We speak consistently that religion should never be used as a proxy for threat.
This is the constitutional alarm bell. It's one thing for activists to make lists. It's something entirely different when government power begins enforcing based on them. That blurs the line between independent advocacy and state authority. If religious communities can be categorized and investigated based on activist ideology, that challenges First Amendment protection and creates a dangerous precedent where political opinion becomes justification for state scrutiny.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Perkins, you don't think your organization focus on our Family Research Council is a hate group?
No.
Or Turning Point USA or ADF?
No, none of those organizations, one of the things we all have in common, none of us advocate violence.
And yeah, have any of those organizations, your own, any of the others that I just listed, have they ever committed arson, destroyed a police station, targeted a police officer or ICE agent, maybe even overturned a patrol car?
No, we've been the target of violence.
Indeed you have. Indeed you have. So how do you explain this list that SPLC has and that Ms. Tyler, refuses to, answer? She doesn't have an opinion as to whether your organization's a hate group. How do you explain that list?
Well, the difficulty is because it's not based upon any type of action. It's based upon ideology that the Southern Poverty Law Center disagrees with. And so, again, they have the freedom to speak and make lists. They can do it all day long. But it's when the government uses that list to marginalize citizens, you have taken a player and you've made him a referee.
Here, the stakes become unmistakable. When ideological disagreement becomes grounds for federal suspicion, democracy stops functioning as a competition of ideas and becomes a system of enforcement. Classifying citizens as threats because of belief does not just chill speech, it reshapes the balance between people and government. And history shows once that power is normalized, it rarely gets rolled back.
And isn't that why we're here today?
That is exactly
because
why
the
we're here.
Biden administration used SPLC's hate list, hate map, to target, among others, I'm sure.
So did the Obama administration.
And so did the Obama administration. So that's what we're talking about. The SPLC in collusion with government targeting
Yes, sir.
religious groups and political groups with which the Biden regime and the Obama regime disagreed. Well, thank you for your testimony. Thank you to all the witnesses for being here today.
Thank you,
Yield
gentleman
back.
from Missouri. I now recognize the ranking member of the committee for a UC request.
Thank you very much. Just two things, Mr. Chairman. One is
This moment frames the broader institutional concern. Whether administrations are selectively weaponizing external advocacy tools to justify targeting political and religious opponents. If true, that represents systemic bias embedded into governance decisions. The question is no longer whose politics win. It becomes whether institutional power is still neutral at all. And democracy cannot survive long if citizens no longer believe the government is acting impartially. This hearing revealed something larger than a disagreement over terminology. It exposed a deeper vulnerability in American governance. When advocacy organizations can shape federal action, political bias risks becoming institutional practice. That threatens religious freedom, civil trust, and the credibility of every agency that relies on flawed or ideological classifications. Democracies depend on restraint, neutrality, and fairness. Once those principles weaken, every citizen, regardless of party, becomes vulnerable to being labeled next. Accountability matters. Transparency matters. And a government that claims moral authority must first prove it acts without political convenience. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA.